Li-Hoon pushed the control stick forward and watched his small salvage ship drift between the massive pieces of broken metal floating in space. The Kepler graveyard stretched out in all directions around him. Old battleships and fighter craft hung motionless in the darkness. Some were human ships. Others belonged to alien races he had never seen before. This was where ships came to die 300 years ago. Back when humans first met aliens and everything went wrong. Back when war was the only language anyone spoke. Now it was just Hayan's workplace. He checked the scanner display on his dashboard. Green dots showed valuable metals. Blue dots meant working computer parts. Red dots were dangerous things like unexploded weapons or leaking radiation. Today he was looking for something specific. His client wanted old navigation computers from the war period. He paid good money for that kind of historical tech. "See anything interesting out there?" Park Jin asked through the radio. Jin was flying his own salvage ship about 2 kilometers away. They always worked together in the graveyard. It was safer that way. "Just the usual junk," Hyun replied. He guided his ship around a chunk of armor plating the size of a building. "How about you?" "Nothing yet." "But I got a weird reading from that big cruiser over there. The one with the broken back." Hyun looked where Jin was pointing. A massive human warship floated in the distance. It had been split almost in half by some terrible weapon. The front section hung at an odd angle from the rear. Most salvage crews had picked through it. Years ago, there should not be anything valuable left. "What kind of reading?" Han asked. "Energy signature. Very faint. It could be a backup power cell that still has some juice in it." Han thought about it. Even a small working power cell from the war period was worth a month of regular salvage work. "Let me take a look." He turned his ship toward the broken cruiser. As he got closer, he could see the damage more clearly. Something had cut through the ship's hull like it was paper. The edges of the cut were smooth and perfectly straight. No human weapon could do that kind of damage. This ship had died fighting. Aliens high-end docked his salvage ship to an airlock on the cruiser's rear section. The airlock was old, but it still worked. He put on his spacesuit and checked his equipment. Cutting torch, scanner, sample bags, emergency beacon. I'm kind of once I want you to come my way. Hyan's helmet light cut through the blackness as he moved down the corridor. His boots made soft clanking sounds on the metal floor. The ship's artificial gravity was still working, but barely. Everything felt light and strange. He followed his scanner toward the energy reading. It led him deeper into the ship, past empty crew quarters, past a medical bay with examination tables covered in dust, past a weapons locker that someone had already cleaned out. The energy signature was getting stronger. "Jin, you still there?" Hyun spoke into his radio. "Yeah, find anything. Still looking. This place gives me the creeps. Most of these old ships do. Just grab what you can and get out." Hyun turned a corner and stopped. His scanner was going crazy. The energy reading was off the charts. But he could not see anything that should be putting out that much power. He was in what looked like an officer's quarters. A bed, a desk, a small bathroom. Nothing special. But his scanner insisted the energy source was right here. Hyun walked around the room slowly. When he got near the far wall, his scanner started beeping faster. He ran his hands along the wall. Panels. One of them felt different. Warmer than the others. He found a hidden catch and the panel slid aside. Behind it was a small room. he had never seen on any ship design. The walls were covered with strange symbols that hurt to look at directly. They seemed to move and shift when he was not staring right at them. In the center of the room stood something that made Hyan's breath catch in his throat. It was a suit of armor, but not like any armor he had ever seen. It was clearly human in design, the right size and shape for a person, but it was covered with the same weird symbols as the walls, and it was beautiful in a way that scared him. The armor was a deep blue color that seemed to glow from within. Tubes and wires ran along its surface in patterns that looked almost like artwork. The helmet was smooth and featureless except for a golden faceplate that reflected his helmet light. Inside, the armor was a man. Hyan stepped closer and his heart nearly stopped. The man's face was perfectly preserved. No decay, no damage. He looked like he was just sleeping, and he looked exactly like Hyan. Not similar. Not close, exactly the same. Down to the small scar above the left eyebrow that Hyan had gotten as a child, it was like looking into a mirror. "This is not possible," Hyan whispered. His radio crackled. "Say again. I missed that." "Nothing, just talking to myself." Hyan walked around the armor. There were control panels built into the walls around it. Most of the displays were dark, but a few still showed readouts in languages he did not recognize. The energy his scanner had detected was coming from the armor itself. After 300 years, it was still powered on. Hyan reached toward one of the control panels and stopped. Something was wrong. The symbols on the walls were definitely moving now, slowly, like they were breathing. "Jin," he said into his radio, "I think you should come take a look at this. Find something good. I found something impossible." He waited for Jin to arrive. Hyan studied the armor more carefully. There were no obvious weapons. No heavy plates or reinforced sections. It looked more like a second skin than battle gear. But something about it felt dangerous. Like a sleeping predator, the man inside had his eyes closed. His hands were folded across his chest. He wore a simple uniform under the armor. On his chest was a name tag that read "Mouth Die" in human letters. Jin's voice came through the radio. 15 minutes later? Where are you? The ship is huge. Follow the energy reading. Cannot miss it." When Jin finally found the hidden room, he stopped in the doorway and stared. "What in the hell is that thing? I've no idea. But look at the man inside." Jin stepped closer and his face went pale behind his helmet faceplate. "That's you." "No, but that's impossible. This ship is 300 years old. I know that too." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Jin pointed at one of the control panels. "Look at this. These readings are in real time. The armor is monitoring his vital signs." Hyan looked at the display Jin was pointing to. Numbers and graphs that meant nothing to him. But one thing was clear. The readouts were active, changing, like the man inside was still alive. "We need to call this in," Jin said. "This is way above our pay grade." "Wait." Hyan moved to a different control panel. This one had human text mixed in with the alien symbols. He could read some of it. "Emergency release protocol. Manual activation." "Do not even think about it," Jin said. But Han was already thinking about it. The man in the armor had his face, his exact face. That could not be a coincidence. And the armor was still powered after 3 centuries, still keeping someone alive. There had to be a reason. What if he's trapped in there? Hyan asked. What if he's been waiting for someone to let him out? What if opening that thing kills him? Or worse, what if it kills us? Hyan looked at his own reflection in the armor's golden faceplate. For just a moment, he could have sworn he saw the eyes behind it open and look back at him. "I have to know," he said. Before Jin could stop him, Hyan pressed the emergency release button. The armor made a soft hissing sound. Ancient seals released. The chest plate began to open, and from inside came a voice that sounded exactly like Hyan's own. "Welcome back, old friend. We have work to finish." The voice that came from the armor made Jin step backward so fast he bumped into the wall. It was Hyan's voice, exactly the same tone and accent, but Hyan had not spoken. "What did you just say?" Hyan asked, staring at the opening chest plate. The armor did not answer. The man inside remained still with his eyes closed. But the chest plate continued to open with small mechanical sounds. Ancient air leaked out in tiny white puffs. The smell was strange. Not bad, just old. It's like opening a book that had been closed for centuries. We need to leave. Right now, Jin said. His voice was shaking. No, I need to understand what this is. Hyun, that thing just talked to you. With your voice.
Ow.
This is not normal salvage work anymore. But Hyun was not listening. He was staring at the man in the armor. Now that the chest plate was open, he could see more details. The man's uniform was made from materials he did not recognize. The fabric looked new even after 300 years. And there were small devices attached to his arms and neck. Medical equipment, maybe. His chest is moving, Haeon said quietly. Looked closer. That's impossible. Look for yourself. Jin moved beside Han and watched. The man's chest was rising and falling very slowly, like he was in a deep sleep. We are calling the military, Jin said. This is their problem now. Wait, let me try something first. Hu-Yeon reached toward the man's face. Jin grabbed his arm. Do not touch him. I just want to check if he's really alive. What if touching him does something bad? What if the armor activates? What if it thinks you are attacking him? Hien pulled his arm free. What if he needs help? Before Jin could stop him, Yoon touched the man's forehead with his gloved hand. The reaction was immediate. The man's eyes snapped open. They were the same color as Hyun's eyes, the same shape. Everything about his face was identical to Hyen's. But when he looked at Hyen, there was something in his expression that was not human. Something old and tired and very dangerous. You came back, the man said. His lips moved, but the voice seemed to come from everywhere in the room. I knew you would. Who are you? Han asked. I am you. You are me. We are what we have always. Bin Jin was backing toward the door. Hyun, we need to go. Now. The man in the armor sat up slowly. The movement should have been stiff after 3 centuries. Instead, it was smooth and easy, like he had just been lying down for a few minutes. Armor chose you, the man said to Hyun. Just as it chose me. Just as it will choose the next one when our time is finished. I do not understand, you will. Put on the armor and you will understand everything. That is not happening, Jin said from the doorway. The man looked at Jin for the first time. When he did, Jin felt something cold move through his mind. Fingers made of ice touching his thoughts. Your friend is afraid, the man said to Hyun. He should be. What we are about to do will change everything. All for you. For him. For all of humanity. What are you talking about? The man stood up. As he did, the armor began to separate from his body. Piece by piece, it moved away from him and arranged itself in the air nearby. The blue glow got brighter. The strange symbols on its surface moved faster. 300 years ago, I put on this armor to fight an enemy that was coming to destroy all life in the galaxy. I succeeded, but the cost was my humanity. I became something else, something that could exist between life and death, between human and alien, between past and future. The man stepped out of the armor completely. He was wearing only the simple uniform underneath, but he did not look weak or old. He looked exactly like Hayan would look in a uniform. The enemy is returning, the man continued. Sooner than we hoped. The armor has been waiting for the right person to take my place. Someone who could handle the power without losing himself completely. How do you know all this? Hyun asked. Because I have lived it. I have seen the future that comes if we fail. I have watched planets die. I've watched entire species disappear. The armor showed me everything. Jin stepped back into the room. Hyun, do not listen to him. This is crazy talk, is it? The man looked at Jin again. This time Jin saw images flash through his mind. Spaceships the size of moons. Creatures made of living darkness. Planets burning in space. The enemy devours. Consciousness itself. They leave behind empty bodies that breathe and walk, but contain no souls, no thoughts, no dreams, nothing but meat. Hyun felt something pulling at his mind. The armor was floating closer to him. He could feel its power like heat from a fire. You feel it, do not you? The man said. The armor recognizes you. It has been calling to you your whole life. Every choice you made, every path you took, everything led you here. That's impossible. You became a salvage operator. Why? Because you were drawn to old battlefields. You chose to work in the Kepler graveyard. Why? Because something deep inside. You knew you would find what you were looking for here. Hyun thought about his life. The man was right. He'd always felt pulled toward the old war sites. Always felt like he was searching for something without knowing what it was. The scar above your eyebrow, the man said. How did you get it? I fell when I was 7. Hit my head on a rock. I have the same scar. Got it the same way. At the same age. Do you think that is coincidence? Hyun touched his scar through his helmet. It was something he had never thought about before. Just a childhood accident. We are the same person, the man said. Separated by time. The armor creates a loop. When one of us dies, another is born. Somewhere else. Someone who will grow up to find the armor when it is needed again. The armor was very close now. Hyun could see his reflection in its golden faceplate. But for a moment, his reflection looked different. Older. Sadder. Like someone who had seen too much. Put it on, the man said. Become what you were always meant to be. Do not do it, Jin said. This is insane. Hyun looked at his friend. Jin was scared. Really scared. But there was something else in his expression. Something that looked almost like recognition, Shin Hyeon said. Have you been having strange dreams lately? Dreams about battles in space? About creatures made of shadow? Jin's face went white. How did you know that? Because the armor affects everyone around it. Your dreams are warnings. The enemy is already sending scouts. They will be here soon. The man nodded. Your friend's bloodline carries genetic markers. From the First War, his ancestors fought alongside mine. It will be important in what comes next. Jin shook his head. This is not real. This cannot be real. Reality is more flexible than most people think, the man said. The armor exists in multiple dimensions at once. It can show you things that happened, things that are happening, things that will happen if we do nothing. Hyun reached toward the armor. His hand stopped just inches from its surface. He could feel energy coming from it, not dangerous energy. Welcoming energy. Like it was happy to see him. What will happen to me if I put it on? He asked. You will become more than human. But you will also become less than human. You will have power, beyond imagination. But you will lose parts of yourself that you can never get back. What parts? The ability to live a normal life. The ability to love someone without putting them in danger. The ability to die when your time comes. Hyun thought about his sister Han's soul. She was serving on a military ship somewhere in the outer system. If what the man said was true, she would be in the path of the enemy when they arrived. I do not put it on. What happens? Humanity dies. All life in this galaxy dies. The enemy wins. And if I do put it on, we have a chance. Not a guarantee, but a chance. Hyun looked at Jin. His friend was still shaking his head. But there was acceptance in his eyes now, like he knew this moment had always been coming. I have to do this, Hyun said. I know, Jin replied quietly. Hyun reached out and touched the armor's chest plate. The moment his fingers made contact, the world exploded into light and sound and knowledge. Information flooded his mind. Battle tactics, alien languages, history of wars fought across dimensions, the true nature of reality itself. And through it all, he heard the armor's voice in his head, not speaking in words, but in pure understanding. Welcome. Home, old friend. Let us finish what we started. The armor flowed onto Hyun's body like liquid metal. Each piece found its place and sealed itself with soft clicking sounds. The helmet was the last to attach. When it locked into position, the world changed. Suddenly, Hyun could see through the walls of the ship, could sense Jin's heartbeat and breathing, could feel the energy signatures of their 2 salvaged ships docked outside. Most shocking of all, he could detect dozens of other energy sources scattered throughout the Kepler graveyard, sources that had been invisible to normal scanners. What is happening to me? Hyun asked. His voice sounded different now, deeper. like it was coming from somewhere far away. "You're becoming what you need to be," the man said. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, watching calmly. "The armor is connecting with your nervous system. In a few minutes, you will have access to knowledge and abilities that took me years to master." Jin was pressed against the wall, staring at his friend. The armor had changed Hyan's appearance completely. He looked taller, stronger. The blue glow made his outline unclear, like he was partially fading into another dimension. "Eon, can you still hear me?" Jin asked. "I can hear everything," Eon replied. "Your voice, your heartbeat. Radio signals from ships 100 kilometers away. The armor has enhanced every one of my senses." Information was still flooding into Hyan's mind. Battle strategies, star maps showing enemy positions from 300 years ago, technical specifications for weapons that could destroy planets. And underneath it all, memories that were not his own. He saw himself as Moth-Die, fighting creatures made of living. Shadow in the space between stars. He saw entire solar systems going dark as the enemy consumed every thinking mind within them. He saw the desperate last stand that had ended the First War. The enemy hand said suddenly, "They are called the Devourers. They feed on consciousness itself." "That is correct," the man said. "They exist in a dimension where thought is substance, where ideas have weight and dreams can be touched. They see our reality as a feeding ground." Jin pushed himself away from the wall. "This is insane." "You were talking about monsters from another dimension." "Not monsters," Hyun said. The armor was showing him new information. Something else. Something that thinks differently than we do. They do not see themselves as evil. They see themselves as cleaners, removing what they consider to be contamination from the universe. Contamination? Life that thinks? Life that dreams. Life that creates new ideas. To them, consciousness is a disease that spreads from planet to planet. The man nodded. "I fought them for 50 years before I understood their true nature. They are not invaders. They are antibodies. It's the universe's immune system responding to what it perceives as an infection." Hyun felt the armor's knowledge settling into his mind like pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. But they are wrong. Consciousness is not a disease. Is the universe trying to understand itself? Exactly. And that is why we fight them. Not because they are evil, but because they are wrong. Jin was looking back and forth between them. Wait, if this war ended 300 years ago, why are they coming back now? The man stood up and walked to one of the control panels. "Because the war never really ended. It moved into what you might call a Cold War phase. Both sides retreated to lick their wounds and prepare for the next round." "What changed?" Hyun asked. "Humanity did. You have spread to over 200 worlds in the last 3 centuries. Your population has grown from billions to trillions. Every human mind that thinks and dreams and creates makes the Devourers more convinced that consciousness is spreading like a plague." The armor showed hand images of human colonies throughout known space, mining stations on dead worlds, research facilities orbiting distant stars, generation ships heading toward galaxies so far away that their light had not yet reached Earth. "We are making them nervous," Hien said. "More than nervous, terrified. From their perspective, humanity is the most dangerous form of conscious life they have ever encountered. You do not just think. You expand your thinking to new places constantly." Jin walked over to the control panel the man was using. The display showed a 3-dimensional map of local space. Red dots were moving slowly toward human territory from several directions. "Those are scout ships," the man explained. "They have been probing our defenses for the last 6 months, testing our responses, learning how much we have advanced since the last war." "How many are there?" Jin asked. "Thousands of scouts, millions of main battle units behind them. The full Devourer fleet is bigger than anything we faced, 300 years ago." Yoon felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold ship around them. "When will they get here?" "The first major attack will begin in approximately 4 months. They will target outer colonies first, places with small populations. They want to test how much resistance they will face." The armor was feeding Hyan tactical information about the coming battle. Human military strength, weapon capabilities, defense positions. The picture was not encouraging. "We cannot win," Hyen said, "not with conventional weapons. Our technology has advanced, but not enough to match what they can do." "Conventional weapons were never going to be enough," the man said. "The Devourers exist partially outside normal space-time. They can phase through matter. They can attack from dimensions we cannot see. Standard military tactics are useless against them. Then how do we fight them?" With this, the man touched the wall, and a new display appeared. It showed technical specifications for the armor Hin was wearing. This suit exists in 17 dimensions simultaneously, can interact with the Devourers on their own terms. Jin was studying the display. There is only one suit. One suit. One person who can use it effectively. One chance to stop them before they consume every thinking mind in human space. The weight of responsibility hit Hyen like a physical blow. Trillions of lives depending on him. An entire species looking to him for salvation. And he was just a salvage operator who had stumbled into something beyond his understanding. "I cannot do this," he said. "I am not a soldier. I'm not a hero. I fix old machines and sell scrap metal." "You are more than you think," the man replied. "The armor would not have accepted you otherwise, and you will not be alone." "What do you mean?" The man gestured toward Jin. "Your friend carries genetic markers from the original war. His ancestors were part of the support team that helped me fight the Devourers. The genes that made them valuable then are still active in him now." Jin stared at the man. "That is impossible. My family has been farmers for generations." "What did your great-grandfather do for work?" Jin thought about it. "He worked for the military, some kind of technical specialist. But that was during peacetime. Check the historical records when you get back to Earth. I think you will find that your great-grandfather was involved in projects that were classified at the highest levels. Projects related to dimensional physics and consciousness research." The armor was confirming what the man said. Jin's genetic profile showed markers that were common in people who could interact with multi-dimensional technology without losing their sanity. "This is too much," Jin said. "Yesterday, I was a simple salvage operator. Now you are telling me I am descended from some kind of super soldiers." "It's not super soldiers," Hien said. The armor was showing him more information about the original war. Support specialists. People who could work with the armor without being overwhelmed by its effects. People could help coordinate the battle from multiple dimensional perspectives. "Armor needs a team to function at full capacity," the man explained. "One person wears it and fights directly. Others provide support from the base dimension, monitor energy levels, track enemy movements, coordinate with military forces." Jin looked at his friend. The armor made Hyen appear almost ghostly, like he was slowly fading away from normal reality. "What will happen to you if you keep wearing that thing?" Jin asked. "I will become less human and more something else," Hien replied honestly. "The armor changes the person who wears it. Gradually, permanently. After a few months, I will be able to exist in multiple dimensions at once. But I will also have trouble relating to people who only exist in one dimension." "Like him?" Jin pointed. "At the man, eventually, yes. I will become someone who can fight the Devourers effectively. I will also become someone who can barely remember what it felt like to be fully human." The man nodded sadly. "It is the price we pay. We sacrifice our humanity to save humanity." Jin was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at the display showing the approaching enemy scouts. "When do we start?" he asked. Both Hien and the man looked at him. "You said I have a role to play," Jin continued. "You said my genetics make me useful. So when do we start preparing?" "For this war?" "Right now," the man said. "First, we need to contact the military and convince them that the threat is real. Then we need to begin training you both for what comes next." "How long do we have?" Hyun asked. "Less time than we need, but maybe enough time to give humanity a fighting chance." The armor showed Hain one final image. Earth as seen from space. Blue and green and beautiful. Home to billions of people who had no idea that their entire future was about to be decided by a salvage operator wearing the armor of a dead man. "Let us get started," Han said. Fleet Admiral Choi Min stood in the briefing room staring at the holographic display with disbelief. The images showed 3 ships approaching the edge of human space. Ships that did not match any known design in the military database. "You are telling me these things are from another dimension?" Admiral Choi asked. "That is correct," said Kim Soo, the military scientist who had arrived to study Han's armor. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who specialized in alien technology. "The ships exist partially outside our normal space-time. Our sensors can barely detect them." Hean sat at the conference table wearing the armor. It had been 2 weeks since he first put it on, and the changes were becoming more obvious every day. Sometimes he would stare at empty air as if seeing things that were not there. Other times he would answer questions before people finished asking them. "The armor is showing me their positions in real time," Han said. His voice had that distant quality again. "They are testing our response capabilities, seeing how quickly we can detect and track them." Jin was standing by the window looking out at the military ships docked at the space station. He had been having the strange dreams more often now, dreams where he was coordinating battles from a command center filled with technology he did not recognize. "Your friend seems distracted," Admiral Choi said to Han. "The armor's influence is affecting him more each day. His genetic markers make him sensitive to dimensional shifts. He's starting to remember things that happened to his ancestors 300 years ago." Kim Soo looked up from her tablet. "Memory echoes. The armor creates quantum entanglement between related genetic lines. People with the right DNA can access ancestral memories when exposed to its field." "Is that dangerous?" Admiral Choi asked. "We do not know yet. Jin is the first person we have found with strong enough markers to experience the effect." Jin turned from the window. "I remember things about the First War. Battle strategies. Enemy weaknesses. How the support teams coordinated with the armor. Wearer, it feels like remembering a movie I watched years ago." "Can you use those memories?" Han asked. "Some of them. The technical knowledge is clearest. I understand how to operate equipment that has not been built yet." Admiral Choi sat down heavily in his chair. "This is insane. We are planning to fight interdimensional monsters based on memories from people who died centuries ago." "Do you have a better plan?" Kim Soo asked. "Conventional military response? Deploy the fleet. Use our best weapons. Fight them the same way we fight any enemy." Hyun shook his head. "That will not work. I can see how the Devourers move through space. They exist in multiple dimensions at once. Your weapons will pass right through them. Your ships will be sitting targets." The holographic display changed to show a simulation. Human warships firing at the strange enemy vessels. The weapons had no effect. Then the enemy ships began to glow, and the human vessels simply stopped moving. Their crews were still at their stations, but no longer responding to communications. "They drained consciousness," Han explained. "Leave the bodies alive but empty. No thoughts, no memories. Number. Dreams, just breathing meat." Admiral Choi stared at the simulation. "How many ships are coming? Thousands in the first wave? Millions behind them if the first attack succeeds. And you think one person in a suit of armor can stop all of that? One person wearing this specific armor? With the right support team? Using tactics that work in multiple dimensions?" Kim Soo touched her tablet and new information appeared on the display. "We have been analyzing the armor's capabilities. It does things that should be impossible according to our understanding of physics, such as it can phase between dimensions, move through solid matter, exist in multiple locations simultaneously, and most importantly, it can interact with beings that exist primarily in non-physical dimensions." Jin walked over to the display. "As a support team coordinates all of that. One person cannot track 17 different dimensional states while fighting. They need others to monitor the battle from multiple perspectives." "How big of a support team?" Admiral Choi asked. "At least 12 people with the right genetic markers. Maybe more depending on the size of the enemy force." "And where are we supposed to find 12 more people like Jin?" Kim Soo smiled for the first time since the meeting began. We have been running genetic scans on military personnel for the last week. We found 47 people with usable markers. Most of them do not know their family history includes connections to the original war. Ken felt the armor feeding him new information. The enemy scouts had changed course. They were moving faster now, coming directly toward Earth instead of circling around human space. Something has changed, he said. The scouts detected our scanning activities. They know we are preparing for them. How long do we have? Admiral Choi asked. 6 weeks? Maybe less. The room went quiet. 6 weeks to prepare for a war against an enemy that conventional weapons could not touch. 6 weeks to train a support team using recovered memories from 3 centuries ago. 6 weeks to turn a salvage operator into humanity's greatest weapon. There is something else, Heen said quietly. The armor is changing me faster now, because the enemy is closer. It is preparing me for battle by making me less human. What kind of changes? Kim-Soo asked. I can see things that have not happened. Yet, multiple possible futures playing out simultaneously. I can hear conversations taking place on the other side of the station. Sometimes I forget which dimension I am primarily existing in. Jin looked worried. Is it permanent? Yes. Each day I wear the armor, I become more like Mothadai, more connected to the space between dimensions, less connected to normal human reality. Admiral Choi leaned forward. Can you still fight effectively? I can fight better than any human has ever fought before, but I am not sure how much of me will be left when the fighting is done. The man who had been Mothadai appeared in the corner of the room. Only Hyun and Jin could see him. He looked sad. The price gets higher each time, Mothadai said. I lost most of my humanity in the first war. You will lose even more in this one. Why? Hyun asked. Because the enemy is stronger now, more organized. You will need to use more of the armor's power to defeat them. Kim-Soo noticed Hyun talking to empty air. Are you seeing him again? He says the enemy has learned from their defeat 300 years ago. They will not make the same mistakes twice. Admiral Choi stood up. Then we better learn fast too. Kim, start assembling the support team. Jin, work with them on recovering those ancestral memories. I want everyone trained and ready in 4 weeks. What about the regular fleet? Jin asked. They will provide backup and evacuation support. Keep civilian populations safe, while the real battle happens in dimensions we cannot see. Hyun felt the armor showing him images of the coming war. Battles fought in space that existed between spaces. Enemy ships that could only be damaged by weapons that fired across multiple realities. Human defenders who would have to fight while existing partially outside normal time. There is something else you need to know, he said. This war will not end with a single battle. The Devourers are just the first wave. Behind them is something worse, something that has been waiting for the right moment to enter our reality. What could be worse than creatures that eat consciousness? Admiral Choi asked. The thing that created the Devourers, the source of their power. It has been studying us through them, learning our weaknesses, planning the final attack. The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. How long do we have before that arrives? Kim-Soo asked. If we win the coming battle, maybe a year. If we lose, it will come immediately to finish what the Devourers started. Admiral Choi looked at the holographic display showing the approaching enemy scouts. Then we better make sure we win. Hayo nodded, but part of him wondered if winning was even possible. The armor was showing him too many futures where humanity lost, too many timelines where Earth went dark and empty, too many possibilities where he failed to save the people he loved. But there were also futures where they succeeded. Narrow paths through the chaos where humanity survived and grew stronger. The armor would help him find one of those paths, even if it cost him everything that made him human. The attack began at 0347 hours on a Tuesday morning, when reality started breaking apart at the edge of the solar system. Hyun was in the command center on Earth's orbital defense station when the first reports came in. The support team of 12 specialists sat at control panels around him. Each person was monitoring different dimensional aspects of the battle space. Jin coordinated their efforts from the central command position. Enemy contacts emerging from fold space, reported Han Sol. Hyan's sister, who had been assigned to the communications team. Multiple signatures. They are bigger than our projections suggested. The main display showed what looked like tiers. In space itself, through these openings came ships that hurt to look at directly. They shifted and flowed like living things. Sometimes they appeared solid. Sometimes they seemed to be made of shadow and starlight. How many? Admiral Choi asked from his position at the fleet command station. Scanning now, said one of the support team members. Initial count shows over 3,000 vessels in the first wave. Jan felt the armor feeding him information about each enemy ship. Their dimensional signatures, their weapon capabilities, their crew sizes. The data was overwhelming, but necessary. They are not just ships, he said. Each one is a living creature. The Devourers grow their vessels instead of building them.
Are
they vulnerable to conventional weapons? Admiral Choi asked. No. Our weapons exist in only 3 dimensions. The enemy ships exist in 17. You would need to hit them simultaneously across multiple realities to cause real damage. The human fleet was already moving to intercept 200 of humanity's most advanced warships spread out in defensive formations. They looked impressive on the tactical display, but Hyan could see through the armor's enhanced perception that they were flying toward an enemy they could barely touch. Jin, activate the dimensional tracking system, Yoon ordered. Jin's hands moved across his control panel with practiced efficiency. The memories from his ancestors were stronger now. He knew exactly which controls to use, even though the technology had been built only weeks ago. Tracking system online. I can see them in 11 of their active dimensions. Route that information to the fleet commanders. Maybe they can find firing solutions that will actually work. The first engagement began 15 minutes later. Human ships opened fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons, missile barrages, energy beams that could cut through asteroids. Most of the weapons passed through the enemy vessels without effect, but some shots landed. The ones fired at exactly the right angles, at precisely the right moments. When the enemy ships happen to be solid in normal space, we are having minimal effect, Admiral Choi reported. Enemy vessels are beginning their attack run. The Devourer ships did not fire conventional weapons. Instead, they projected fields of pure entropy, zones where organized matter began to break down into component atoms, where thinking minds simply stopped thinking. 3 human destroyers flew into one of these fields. The ships kept moving on their original course but stopped responding to communications. When rescue teams boarded them later, they found crews still at their stations, still breathing, but with no one home behind their eyes. I have to get out there, Heen said. The armor is not fully calibrated yet, Kim Soo warned from her technical station. We need more time to map the enemy's dimensional frequencies. Do not have more time. They are killing our people right now. Hyun stood up, and the armor began to glow brighter. The blue energy that surrounded him started to shift and pulse. Reality seemed to bend around him as he prepared to enter the battle. Space, support team, maintain constant contact. I will need your guidance to track targets across multiple dimensions. Copy that, Jin replied. We have your back. Hyun walked to the launch bay where a specially modified fighter craft was waiting. The ship had been equipped with dimensional phase generators. He could follow him partway into the spaces between realities. As he climbed into the cockpit, Hyun felt the armor's power growing stronger. His perception expanded beyond the normal 3 dimensions. He could see the enemy ships as they really were. Not just vessels, but living creatures with organs and nervous systems spread across multiple layers of reality. Launch, when ready. Admiral Choi said over the radio. Launching now. The fighter shot out of the launch bay and into space. Immediately, Hyun felt the difference. The battle looked completely different from inside the combat zone. The enemy ships were everywhere, moving through dimensions that normal sensors could not detect. I count over 5,000 vessels, he reported. They were hiding most of their fleet in parallel dimensions. Can you engage them? Jin asked. Beginning attack, run now. Hyun activated the armor's combat systems. The fighter began to phase between dimensions. One moment it was in normal space, The next, it existed in a reality where the laws of physics worked differently. He fired at the first enemy ship with weapons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The shots hit the creature across 17 different reality layers. It screamed in frequencies that only the armor could detect and began to dissolve back into the space between worlds. First kill confirmed, Heian reported, but there are so many more. The enemy noticed him immediately. Dozens of Devourer ships changed course to intercept. They moved through dimensions like sharks through water. It's fast and deadly and impossible to predict. Enemy vessels converging on your position, Han Sol warned. Multiple attack vectors across dimensional boundaries. Hyun pushed the fighter into a reality fold. Space twisted around him as he moved through areas where distance had no meaning. The pursuing ships followed, but they were slower in the deeper dimensions. He emerged behind their formation and opened fire again. 3 more enemy vessels died before they could react. Each kill was taking tremendous energy. Armor was drawing power from his life force to maintain combat in multiple dimensions. Your energy readings are dropping fast, Kim Soo reported. The armor is consuming too much power. I can handle it, but he could not. Each dimensional shift left him weaker. Each weapon discharge drained more of his life. The armor was keeping him alive and functional, but at a cost that was quickly becoming unsustainable. New enemy contacts, one of the support team members called out. Something big is coming through the dimensional barriers. On the main display, tiers in space began opening near Jupiter. These were much larger than the previous openings. What came through them was not ships. It was a creature the size of a moon, living being that existed primarily in dimensions where thought was substance. It looked like a massive brain surrounded by tentacles made of crystallized ideas. Its presence in normal space made reality itself feel unstable. That is a Devourer, Queen Han said. His voice was strained from the effort of staying conscious. The individual ships are just extensions of its will. Can you fight something that big? Admiral Choi asked. I do not know, but I have to try. Hyun turned his fighter toward the massive creature. As he approached, he could feel its attention focusing on him. It was studying the armor, learning how it worked, preparing countermeasures. Knows what I am, he said. It remembers the armor from the first war. Then it knows how dangerous you are, Jin replied. The queen began to sing, not with sound, but with pure mental energy. The song was designed to break down the quantum structures that held the armor together, to dissolve the bonds between Hyan's consciousness and the suit's systems. Support team. I need help. It is trying to separate me from the armor. We are working on it, Jin said. His fingers flew across his control panel, rerouting power through backup systems, reinforcing your connection to base reality. The song grew stronger. Hyun felt parts of his personality beginning to fade. Memories of his childhood becoming unclear, his connection to humanity growing thin, but he also felt something else. The armor was fighting back, using his human determination as an anchor point. His love for his sister, his friendship with Jin, his desire to protect Earth, all of it became fuel for the armor's defensive systems. I am still here, he said. The queen stopped singing and attacked directly. What? Tentacles made of living nightmare reached across dimensions to grab his fighter, wrapped around the ship, and began to squeeze. Hyun felt the hull beginning to crack. The dimensional phase generators were failing. In moments, he would be pulled into the creature's primary dimension where human technology could not function. Jin, Emergency Protocol 7, he said. That will kill you. Maybe, but it will definitely kill the queen. Jin hesitated for only a second, then his training took over. His hands moved to the emergency controls. Protocol 7 activated. Have 30 seconds. Hyun smiled inside his helmet. Tell my sister I love her. Tell everyone that humanity is worth saving. Then he overloaded every system in the armor simultaneously. The explosion was visible across 17 dimensions. It lit up space like a new star being born. The Devourer Queen died instantly, its massive form dissolving back into the spaces. Between realities, every enemy ship in the system stopped moving at the same moment. Without the Queen's guidance, They were just empty vessels drifting in space. But in the command center, Hyen's life signs had flatlined. "He is gone," Kim-Soo said quietly. The rescue team found Hyen floating in a pocket of twisted space where the normal laws of physics no longer applied. He was alive, but changed. The armor had fused with his body during the explosion. It existed now in multiple dimensions simultaneously, visible as a shimmering outline that seemed to flicker between realities. "Can you hear me?" the rescue team leader asked over the radio. "I can hear everything," Hyen replied. His voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "I can hear conversations happening on Earth. I can hear the thoughts of people dreaming on the other side of the galaxy. The armor connected me to the quantum substrate that underlies all reality." They brought him back to the command center, though bringing was not quite the right word. Hyen moved through space by willing himself to be in a different location. The normal rules of travel no longer applied to him. Jin was waiting when he arrived. "Are you still you?" "I am still me. But I am also much more than me. I can see through the eyes of everyone who has ever worn this armor. I can access the memories of every human who has fought the Devourers across multiple timelines." Kim-Soo ran scanner readings on him from a safe distance. "His energy signature is unlike anything we have recorded. He exists partially outside normal space-time. Is that permanent?" Admiral Choi asked. "Yes," Hyen replied. "But it was necessary. The Queen was only the beginning. Behind her was something much worse. Something that has been waiting in the deepest dimensions for the right moment to enter our reality." "What kind of something?" Hyen's form flickered as he accessed information from dimensions beyond normal perception. The source of the consciousness that created them as tools for pruning unwanted life from the universe. It calls itself the Gardener. The main display activated and showed images that hurt to look at directly. A being of pure thought existing in a realm where ideas had physical form. It was ancient beyond measure and vast beyond comprehension. From its perspective, entire galaxies were just small gardens that occasionally needed weeding. It sees consciousness as an infection that spreads from world to world, Hyen explained. Every thinking mind is a point of contamination that must be cleansed. The Devourers were just its immune system. "Can we fight it?" Jin asked. "Not with conventional methods. The Gardener exists primarily in conceptual space. It cannot be killed with weapons because it is not really alive in any way we understand. It is more like a force of nature, like gravity or time." Han Sol stepped forward. "Then how do we stop it?" "We do not stop it. We prove to it that consciousness is not a disease. That thinking minds are not contamination to be removed, but the universe's way of understanding itself." Admiral Choi frowned. "How do we prove something like that to a cosmic entity?" "By showing it what consciousness can create instead of just what it can destroy. By demonstrating that intelligent life adds value to reality rather than diminishing it." Hyen's form became more solid as he focused his attention on the present dimension. "The Gardener has been watching us through the Devourers. For centuries, it has seen our wars, our violence, our tendency to consume and destroy the worlds we inhabit. From its perspective, we look exactly like a disease that needs to be cured. But we are more than that," Jin said. "Look at human history. Look at what we do to other species. Look at what we do to each other. The Gardener has valid reasons for wanting to eliminate consciousness." The room fell silent. Everyone was thinking about the darker aspects of human nature. The wars, the environmental destruction, the millions of ways that intelligent life could be seen as harmful rather than beneficial. "So what do?" Kim-Soo asked. "We evolve. All of us. Not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. We become the kind of consciousness that adds value to the universe instead of taking from it." Hyen gestured toward the display showing the dormant Devourer ships. "We start with them. These vessels are not dead, they are sleeping, waiting for new instructions from a queen that no longer exists." "You want to wake them up?" Admiral Choi asked in alarm. "I want to reprogram them, show them a different way to exist. Turn them from destroyers into creators." Jin understood immediately. "You want to prove that consciousness can be constructive instead of destructive?" Exactly. If we can teach the Devourers to build instead of consume, it will demonstrate to the gardener that intelligent life has the potential for positive growth. Over the following weeks, Hyun worked with the captured Devourer vessels. His enhanced abilities allowed him to communicate with their semi-organic computer systems. Slowly, carefully, he began to change their programming. Instead of seeking out consciousness to devour, they began to seek out dead worlds to restore. Instead of draining the life from inhabited planets, they started bringing life to barren ones. The change was gradual, but undeniable. "It is working," Kim Soo reported. "The modified Devourers have successfully restored atmosphere to 3 dead worlds in the outer system. They are creating conditions suitable for life rather than destroying existing life." But the real test came when the gardener itself finally arrived. The entity manifested as a distortion in space-time that made reality itself seem fragile. It was too large to see completely, too complex to understand fully. Its presence made everyone within 100 light-years suddenly aware of how small and temporary their existence was. Hyun met it in the space between dimensions where both of them could exist comfortably. The conversation that followed took place in concepts rather than words, in pure meaning transmitted directly from mind to mind. "You have changed my tools," the gardener observed, "made them into something they were never meant to be." "I have shown them their potential," Hyun replied. "The same potential that exists in all conscious life. Consciousness is chaos, creates disorder, it consumes resources, spreads without regard for the harmony of the whole. Consciousness is also creativity. It creates beauty, solves problems. It seeks to understand and improve rather than simply consume." The gardener showed hand images of worlds stripped bare by intelligent species, wars that had destroyed entire civilizations, technologies that had poisoned atmospheres and boiled away oceans. "This is what consciousness creates," the gardener said. Hyun showed the gardener different images: art that moved souls across species barriers, science that had eliminated diseases and extended life, philosophy that had brought peace to warring nations. The reformed Devourers working to restore dead worlds instead of creating more of them. "This is also what consciousness creates," he replied. "You show me exceptions, rare moments when consciousness acts constructively. But the pattern is clear. Intelligent life destroys more than it builds. And then help us change the pattern. Guide us instead of eliminating us. Show us how to be the kind of consciousness that adds value to the universe." Gardner was quiet for a long time. When it finally responded, there was something different in its mental voice, something that might have been hope. "You propose symbiosis instead of elimination. I propose evolution, growth, the kind of consciousness that can exist in harmony with cosmic forces instead of fighting against them. And if your species fails to evolve, if you return to your destructive patterns, then you will have lost nothing by giving us the chance to try." The negotiation continued for what felt like hours, but was actually occurring outside of normal time. Finally, the gardener reached a decision. "I will withdraw my forces. I will give consciousness a chance to prove its value. But I will also watch. If intelligent life continues to spread destruction and chaos, I will return to complete the pruning process." How long do we have? Time is measured differently in the deep dimensions. But in your terms, approximately 1,000 years. If consciousness has not proven its constructive value by then, the elimination will proceed. The gardener began to fade from the space between dimensions. As it left, it transmitted one final message: "Do not disappoint me. The universe has few enough wonders already." When Hyun returned to normal space, he found the human fleet celebrating. The Devourer vessels were departing the solar system peacefully. The immediate threat was over, but he knew the real work was just beginning. "What happens now?" Jin asked. "Now, we become worthy of the chance we have been given. We learn to be the kind of consciousness that creates instead of destroys, that builds instead of consumes, that adds beauty to the universe instead of taking it away. Can we do it?" Hyun looked at his friend, at his sister, at all the humans who had fought beside him. He thought about their capacity for both destruction and creation, their potential for both selfishness and sacrifice. "I do not know," he said, "honestly, but I know we have to try." In the years that followed, Hyun became humanity's guide to a new way of existing. Part human, part armor, part something beyond both, he helped his species learn to live in harmony. With the cosmic forces around them, the armor had changed his life completely. It had cost him his humanity, but given him something greater: ability to see the universe as it truly was. The power to help consciousness itself evolve into something worthy of existence. And sometimes, when he looked at the stars, he could swear he heard the gardener watching, waiting, hoping that this time intelligence would choose to grow instead of simply spreading. The story was far from over. In truth, it was just beginning. But for the first time in cosmic history, consciousness had a chance to prove it deserved to exist, and that, perhaps, was enough.